Welcome to a chat with Glendora on a beautiful fall day, September the 1st. This is my mother's birthday. My mother died in 1983 and she was 93 years old. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Nettie. Happy birthday to you. And so we will have a birthday party for my mother. All she ever wanted was apple pie and tea. And Franklin and I, every year since she died, would have a birthday party for her on September 1st. This year, it'll just be Glendora and no Franklin. Big, fat legal paper, which you knew it was coming. You had a tease on it. This is the Columbia Green Board of Realtors, 337 Fairfield Avenue in Hudson. It's an ethics complaint to the Grievance Committee of the Columbia Green Board of Realtors. The complainant is Glendora, a chat with Glendora. And the person complained about is Natalia, Preferred Country Properties, and Lydia et al. In Chatham. Are the circumstances giving rise to this ethics complaint involved in civil or criminal litigation in a proceeding before the state real estate licensing authority or any other state or federal regulatory or administrative agency? They don't mention courts, but I guess the courts is an administrative agency. Failure that they are. Have you filed or do you intend to file a similar or related complaint with another association of realtors? The answer is yes or no, and I put down reserved. Okay, and it's signed Glendora, and it's dated on August the 26th, and it's taken at least 2 months to write this thing. It's 85 pages long. I understand that should the grievance committee dismiss this ethics complaint, well, you hadn't better. I tell you, you hadn't better. In part or total, within 20 days from my receipt of the dismissal notice to appeal the dismissal to the Board of Realtors. That's rather strange. Why would you appeal it to the same board that made the dismissal? Tax statement. Glendora feels that the preamble was violated because Natalia, Lydia, and Preferred did not wisely utilize the land. That's what realtors are supposed to do. They're supposed to wisely use the land. They did not clean it up. They did not do proper snow removal. They did not hard top the driveway. They did not cover the mud at either entrance with a concrete or brick or asphalt walk. There were 2 inches of mud all over the land, the driveway, and the approaches to the doors. Every time Glendora exited her domicile, it took her a half hour to goosh the wet mud off her boots, wash the boots, and a day to dry them. She had to buy additional footwear to have something dry and ready for the next egress. This was also a rank violation of Glendora's warranty of habitability. Remember, the warranty of habitability may not appear in your list, but it is a New York state law. Explicit or implicit, it is a New York state law. Your warranty of habitability, your guarantee to enjoy the premises that you rent in peace, quiet, safety, Glendora scraped the dried mud off of her Mary Kay Ashley shoes, placed the mud onto a 9 by 12 white paper, put it in a box top, took it to Natalia's office with a second request to remedy, and placed it on her desk, on Natalia's desk. Natalia knocked the box off the desk in Glendora's direction. The mud went all over Natalia's carpet. Glendora exited, and as she turned the outside door knob, heard Natalia say to Lydia, "Call the police." This was false alarm, and Natalia should be charged with the same. Glendora went to Hudson. Natalia is a mudslinger. Now this complaint constitutes a literal misutilization of the land, wetland, mud. This was not in the highest and best use of the land in the interest of the nation and its citizens, which the preamble to the Code of Ethics and the Standards of Practice of the National Association of Realtors states in the preamble. And Glendora's muddy shoes dirtied up the post office and all the stores where she did errands and the Chatham Methodist Church. The preamble mandates, quote, adequate housing, unquote. For this and other inducements, infra-supra violated adequate housing and, quote, and unquote, and presentation of a healthful environment, quote, unquote. Herein are 5 violations of the preamble. Natalia Lydia Preferred Country Properties failed realtors' mandate for grave social responsibility, quote unquote, and patriotic duty, quote unquote, and that's preamble paragraph 2. They were not, quote, diligent, unquote, they were not zealous, quote unquote, to maintain. And here is paragraph 3 of the preamble of the Code of Ethics, Standard of Practice, National Realtors Association, or National Association of Realtors. The big R, with the rectangle around it. Glendora adduces the 3rd paragraph of the preamble was violated because Natalia Lydia Preferred Country Properties commingled the security deposit. This violates New York State General Obligations Law. Natalia Lydia Preferred did not deposit the $435 into a trust fund. Tell Glendora where it was deposited, the name of the account, and pay the interest on it in January 2004. This is not in recognition and appreciation of their obligation as clients, customers, the public, and each other, quote unquote, right from the preamble. This was not being a knowledgeable professional. This was violation of the Code of Ethics. This violated the regulatory body, and this damaged you people who got a copy of this, the 20 of you. Page 5 is missing. That's what the lawyers like to call law clerk error. And page 1 of the Code of Ethics and Standards of Practice of the National Association of Realtors, effective January 1st, 2004. Glendora feels that Article 1 was violated because Natalia Lydia and Preferred Country Properties misled Glendora into thinking that heat, hot water, and water were paid by the landlord. Natalia knew fully well that Glendora's motive in moving north was to cut the cost of $780 in Dutchess to $435 in Columbia. Glendora has an audio tape telling Natalia that. This was her motive. Glendora told Natalia that over a bowl of soup at Our Daily Bread restaurant in Chatham. Then is when Natalia could have set the terms straight and Glendora would have said, thank you, but no. Glendora was knowingly, willfully, and deliberately misled. Rankly against the code. Natalia, Lydia, and Preferred must be expelled. And here is the rest of the code. I'm sorry about page 5 being blank. It's law office error. Now, I should go over there and get the people that it was sent to, but it's too much work. It was sent to Judith Kay, the Chief Judge of the State of New York. Littman, Administrative Judge, the State of New York, concentrating on the courts of New York in Manhattan. His deputy, Primadora, who takes care of the courts outside of New York City. Cerisi, Administrative Judge here in the 3rd Department. To Nichols, a Supreme Court Judge, County of Columbia. To the New York State Commission on Judicial Conduct, Tam Back Gien. To the Village of Chatham and the Police Department. To the Clerk of the Village Court, Chatham. To the Justice, so-called, of the Village Court, Chatham, George C. Dixon. His wife is the clerk. To you, the most important Glendora TV audience, and to the Glendora Network Internet audience. To Terrence McDermott, the Executive Vice President of the National Association of Realtors in Chicago. To Roberta Nicholson, the President of the National Association of Realtors, Columbia Greene County, and to somebody else down there. I will find it for you. Toot sweet. To the Center for Judicial Accountability Incorporated. To Mary Lou Kirsten, President, Columbia Greene Board of Realtors. Clifford D. Nierbach, Vice President, Board Policy and Programs, National Association of Realtors. And that would be it. It was 26. And we move on to page 7. The standard of practice 1-10, Glendora feels that Article 1-10 was violated because Natalia took 9 days to replace a washer in the kitchen sink, and at that time Glendora had to get down on her knees, strain to reach the valve under the kitchen sink. It was a corner sink, so it was a long reach. To turn on or off the hot water 8 or 10 times a day. Natalia let dead branches pile up in the yard. Glendora paid the roofers $20 and a neighbor another $20 to remove them. Natalia should have cleaned up the place. Circa November, on a Saturday afternoon, the furnace stopped running and Glendora called Natalia. It was nothing but a recorder. Glendora called Chatham Fuel. They answered way up in Albany, and they said that they would charge $140 or $150, whatever it was, just to come out. Not to fix it, but just to come out. Because it was on Saturday. There was nothing Glendora could do. It was 35 degrees. She was very cold and getting sick. It was close to hypothermia. She slept 9 p to 5 a on the kitchen floor with lots of blankets and with all her clothes on and made it alive through the cold. It was close to hypothermia. How is this for warranty of habitability? Question mark. However, how is this for allegiance to the preamble through Article 1 to 10 of the Code of the National Realtors? At Chatham Methodist Church the next morning, she asked her fellow congregants who were homeowners if, remember now, Glendora and Franklin never owned a house. It was always too much work and too much responsibility, and it also tied you down. And so we never rented. We never owned a home. We always rented and paid the landlord to do those things. That was our choice for 50 years. So we didn't know anything about a furnace in a home. And I asked the congregation if no heat for 9 days could be fatal, and they all said yes. And because it took 9 days for Natalia to fix the washer in the kitchen sink. Then they found somebody to fix the furnace. He came over right after church, and Glendora was nice and warm by 1 p.m. Then the man, David Silliman, sent the bill. It was $183. Glendora paid it immediately by check, by mail. And then she sent the bill and a copy of the check to Natalia, but Natalia did not pay her bill. This is what this whole thing is about. Natalia did not pay her bill. It wasn't that Glendora didn't pay the rent, it was that Natalia didn't pay for fixing the furnace. Instead, she sent a petition, Natalia sent a petition for 3-day eviction for unpaid rent of $183. Now that, Natalia, I think you know by now. Number one, was not a nice thing to do. Number two, something that you regret very much. And number three, not a very intelligent thing to do. And not moral, and not honorable, and not pursuant to the Code of Ethics and the standards of practice of the National Realtors Association. Glendora went out and found a new landlord. It was March the 21st. She vacated on March the 28th. The new landlord was nice, not nasty like Natalia. The heat is electric, and the hot water is electric. It's a country setting of 3 acres, and the rent is $120 less. Natalia's rent was $435. This rent is $315. The landlord is nice. He's not a realtor, but he does all the things that your Code of Ethics and Standards of Practice says. He does them naturally because he had a good mother. Glendora feels that Natalia Lydia Preferred Properties violated Article 1-11 for all reasons listed supra within pages 1 to 9. Standard of Practice 111, it says that realtors who are employed to maintain or manage a client's property shall exercise due diligence and make reasonable efforts to protect it against reasonably foreseeable contingencies and losses. She failed on all that. She and Lydia in the Preferred Country Properties, a real estate firm in Chatham. Stay away from it. This next standard of practice does not apply. The next one says that realtors active potential clients. It doesn't apply, but Lydia Natalia Preferred should have advised Glendora about paying for heat, paying for hot water, and paying for all water, and of their policies of doing nothing for maintenance. We would have said thank you, but no, it was not what we are looking for. Now that's the first 10 pages. And a fellow named Bob said, if I ever have to have a heart transplant, I want the heart of my boss. It has never been used. The secretary said to the clerk, the judge's mind is beginning to wander. And the clerk says, don't worry, dear, it's too weak to go very far. Ed says there's nothing he wouldn't do for his brother, and his brother says there's nothing he wouldn't do for Ed, and so they go through life doing nothing for each other. The judge's talent has never been questioned. Well, if you want to know the truth, it's never even been mentioned. And the judge has an even disposition, is rotten all the time. And somebody said about another judge that he'd always kept his nose to a grindstone, and somebody else said it must have been a beaut when he started. Eleanor was asked, does your husband do things faster? Has he improved any since taking the self-assertion course? And Eleanor said, well, he does the wrong thing much faster now. And how about David Letterman? His father worked for the post office, right? Because his father's name was Letterman. And the clerk said that the judge is a self-made man, and the pro se said it's nice of him to take the blame. And there's a town in Marblehead that's named after me. Do you know what it is? It's on the North Shore in Massachusetts, just north of Boston. It's Marblehead. We will proceed with pages 11 to 20 of this complaint to the National Association of Realtors about Natalia, Lydia, and Preferred Country Properties in Chatham. And this recommendation is to expel them from the association, the National Association of Realtors with the R and the rectangle. Standard of Practice 114 and 115 do not apply, and we have gone through page 2 of the Realtors Code and Standards, page 2 out of 8. As I say, this paper took 2 months. Here is Article 2, that the Realtors shall avoid something. And Glendora says, unequivocally, Natalia, Lydia, and Preferred Country Properties failed this in its entirety. Shall avoid exaggeration and misrepresentation. Boy, did they fail on that. Standards of Practice 2. 1. Realtors shall only be obligated to discover and disclose adverse factors. Natalia, Lydia, and Preferred Properties totally failed on this. They did not disclose the adverse factors. Glendora feels that Natalia, Lydia, and Preferred Country Properties violated the standards of practice above on multiple accounts. The New York State Real Property Law, the New York State Real Property Actions and Proceedings Law, and the New York State General Obligations Law. Article 3, Realtors shall cooperate with other brokers except when cooperation is not in the client's best interest. This is page 13, and here's a reproduction of the code and the practice. And these do not apply to the action herein. Next paragraph 20, Glendora feels that Natalia, Lydia, and preferred country properties violated Article 4 of the Code of Ethics and Standards of Practice of the National Association of Realtors. They willfully, deliberately, and knowingly misrepresented to Glendora their ownership of the property Glendora rented. They lied repeatedly that they only managed it. They told Glendora's neighbor that somebody in Florida owned it, but a neighbor who knew all the circumstances of the property for years and years and years across the street exposed the lie by telling Glendora its history for over 15 years. Natalia's mother bought the property when the owner was confined to a nursery home, and this is only one of many lies and deceits that Natalia et al. Perpetrated on Glendora. Standard of Practice 4-1 for the protection of all parties. D. Disclosures required by Article 4 shall be in writing and provided by realtors. Natalia et al. Should have done this. They didn't. And again, they violated Article 5. Realtors shall not undertake to provide professional I guess it's advice, right? Concerning a property or its where they have a present or contemplated interest. Well, see, they did that because they actually owned this property. And that's the end of page 3 of the code. We've got 5 to go. Natalia, Lydia, and preferred totally failed on Article 6. Standard of Practice 6-1. Realtors shall not recommend or suggest to a client something, the services of another business, and Lydia and Natalia Preferred did that because they made me take Chatham Fuel, and Chatham Fuel was not good. It's part of Main Care, and their prices were higher than Glendora would have had to pay for propane and kerosene from another company. So this is also Sherman antitrust. And then even though we were paying Chatham Fuel, she blocked their coming to repair the furnace the second time it stopped. She was always saying that Glendora broke the contact by opening the door. Glendora didn't open the door until after the furnace stopped. And she wouldn't let, even though we were paying the Chatham Fuel bill, she wouldn't let Chatham come and fix the furnace without her consent. That's Napoleonism. Article 7. Glendora asseverates that Natalia Lydia Preferred rankly violated Article 8. She took the $435 security deposit and commingled it with her own funds. By Article 8, she should have deposited it in a separate bank account and notified Glendora of the location and the account number and paid us the interest in January 2004. Simultaneously with violating Article 8 herein, she violated the New York State General Obligations Law. A landlord is not to take your security deposit and commingle it with his own funds and for his own use. That is conversion. a landlord is to take the money and put it in a separate account and leave it there, let it accumulate interest, notify you, the tenant, where the money has been deposited, what the account number is, and is to pay you interest at January of every year. To this date, August the 7th, 04, Natalia, Lydia, and Preferred have not returned Glendora's $435 security deposit plus 9% New York State statutory interest. Interest is no longer 9%, it's a miserable 1% due to the avarice of the international bankers who are on the board of the Federal Reserve Bank. The interest is way below 1%. But even so, it's still a New York State law. They have to pay 9% interest. It's still a statute. Natalia is scared of the police. When Natalia tried to break into Glendora's apartment, Glendora called the police, and Natalia fled like a gazelle. Glendora intones that Natalia, Lydia, and Preferred viciously violated Article 9. Realtors for the protection of all parties shall assure whenever possible that all agreements related to real estate transactions, including but not limited to listing and representation agreements, purchase contracts, and leases, are in writing in clear and understandable language, expressing the specific terms, conditions, obligations, and commitments of the parties. This was Natalia's first failure, and it was fatal. Nobody ever signed the lease when Glendora did. Nobody ever served on Glendora a copy of the lease, signed or unsigned, and nobody ever served on Glendora a copy of the lease signed by Natalia, Lydia, and Preferred or unsigned. And duties to the public, we are up to Article 10 of the Code of Ethics and Standards of Practice of the National Association of Realtors. Herein there is no injury to Glendora, so we move on to Article 11. The services which realtors provide to their clients and customers shall conform to the standards of practice and competence which are reasonably expected in the specific real estate disciplines in which they engage. Natalia, Lydia, and Preferred Country Properties totally failed on this. Glendora adduces that Natalia, Lydia, and Preferred Country Properties violated Standard of Practice 11-2 in its entirety, which is the obligations of the Code of Ethics in respect of real estate disciplines other than appraisal shall be interpreted and applied in accordance with the standards of competence and practice which clients and the public reasonably require to protect their rights and interests. Glendora adduces that Natalia, Lydia, and Preferred Country Properties violated Standard of Practice 11-2 in its entirety. This is page 18, where we reproduce the standards in the code. And there's no injury on Standard of Practice 10. 1 and 2 and 3, and now we're up to Article 11, and the services which realtors provide to their clients and customers shall conform to the standards of practice and competence which are reasonably expected in the specific real estate disciplines. And Natalia, Lydia, and Preferred totally failed on that. Standard of Practice 11.2, Glendora deduces that Natalia, Lydia, and Preferred Country Properties violated Standard of Practice 11.2 in its entirety, and there it is, reproduced, and we're up to page 20. In Standard of Practice 11.4, the competency required by Article 11 relates to services contracted for between realtors and their clients. Natalia, Lydia, and Preferred failed dismally. Have you got the drift that Natalia, Lydia, Preferred must be expelled from the National Association of Realtors if you want to maintain your reputation? Natalia had under oath lied 3 times in court. At least she violated due process at least 20 times. She cheats. She doesn't play squarely and fairly. Ibid, Lydia, and Preferred, they fail to comprehend warranty of habitability. They fail to understand possession of the premises. They fail to emblazon with truth, honesty, integrity. And do you understand that? National Association of Realtors. Now, we can take a break because we've done the 20 pages. And what do we do? Now thank we all our God with hearts and minds and voices, who wondrous things have done in which the world rejoices, who from our mother's arms hath led us on our way with countless gifts of love, and still ours today. Okay, you want to stay with this? This is going up on the internet, and this is going on a chat with Glendora on Channel 7, Charter Communications in Chatham, Ghent, and Copiague, and 4 or 5 other municipalities. Article 12 of the Realtors shall be careful of at all times to present a true picture. This is totally failed by Lydia and by Natalia and by Preferred Country Properties. Standard of Practice 12.4, Realtors, when advertising a property in which they have an ownership interest, shall disclose their status. They didn't disclose their ownership status. They lied. They said all they did was manage it. And they failed to disclose the terms that the tenant paid for their heat and the kerosene and the stove propane and water. Had they told us, we would have thanked them and said, no. They know from the start we were looking for $435 plus electric only. We ended up paying $500 heat. Article 13, Glendora affirms herein that Article 13 was violated abominably. The legal counsel that she retained, James Kleinbaum, aggravated the situation threefold. The petition he put out for a 3-day eviction on the basis of Lydia's unpaid bills, $183 for furnace, $26 for sink drain, and $90 circa for water. was fatally defective. The petition was fatally defective and it was illiterate. And Glendora annotated the same in her complaint. Glendora versus Nasty Natalia, brat sister Lydia, mother Marie, father, brother Carlos, and preferred country properties. You must read this 100 pages to see how appallingly Natalia violated the National Association of Realtors Code and Standards. The paper was never properly served pursuant to the New York State Real Property Actions and Proceedings Law, which must be strictly construed. There was no in personam service. There was no regular mail service. There was no nail and mail. The farcical petition was left in the door and the handle of the screen door. And she had a Chatham cop serve it, and cops are not supposed to do process serving, well, obviously. Natalia et al. Lied that Glendora had not paid the rent. Natalia had not paid the bill for the furnace. Natalia had not paid the bill for the sink drain. Natalia had not paid the water bill. It was Natalia who did not pay. It was not Glendora. Natalia kept harassing Glendora to inspect Glendora's apartment. Glendora posted signs, do not enter, possession is by the tenant, and only in extreme emergency can a landlord enter without the tenant's consent. There was no extreme emergency, so when Natalia tried to force her way in, Glendora called the police. Natalia fled instantly when, through the flimsy door, she heard Glendora summoning the police. Natalia broke the relationship with her despicable, mean-spirited, nasty 3-day eviction. You know you got to be pretty base to do something like that. With her 3-day eviction notice, illegal though it was. Remember, there was no lease. Natalia never served Glendora a lease, signed or unsigned. So it was the point of no return. Glendora wanted a nice landlord. She went out to one place on the first and only day. She bought newspapers, called rentals, and looked. This was 4 months, 1 week ago. Well, now it's 5 months, 1 week ago. And the rental is idyllic, electric heat, hot water, and no water bills, and in good repair. And so thank you, Natalia, for that. Kleinbaum coached Chatham Village Justice George C. Dixon to get a statement from Glendora that she had vacated. Glendora told Dixon that she had. Glendora vacated March 28, 2004, leaving the trailer rental by Natalia in much better condition than when Glendora took possession of it. Glendora's vacatur should have ended the case right there, but collusively Dixon let Kleinbaum, Natalia, Conclave go on to damages. Their March 18th petition said nothing about damages. They lied, and they did not file any complaint to the court about the damages. Dixon was wrong. Natalia et al. Were wrong. Kleinbaum was wrong. Their chance to litigate was then and there that night of March the 30th, but Dixon ex parte let Kleinbaum adjourn to April 13, 2004, Glendora's court date against Natalia, Glendora versus Nasty Natalia, index number 0304129, Glendora versus Nasty Natalia, brat sister Lydia, mother Marie, father, brother Carlos, and preferred country properties. Glendora was occupied when Kleinbaum illegally adjourned with getting her legal papers date stamped by the clerk, because it took all day to try to get these papers into the clerk and date stamped, and I tried 6 times to do it, and I was blocked 6 times to do it, and so the second I saw the clerk, I got that done, and they were over here ex parte doing an adjournment, which I did not want. April the 13th, Dixon let the adjourned case be heard first instead of Glendora's case, the scheduled case for that calendar night, and Glendora versus Nasty Natalia. It was an ambush. Natalia Kleinbaum presented a litany of phony damages that they had not told me about. It was an ambush. They had never put it in writing to Glendora before the court date. It was all lies. It was unproven, unsubstantiated. There were no signatures. There were no witnesses, and it was all conclusory. And when asked any questions, the answers were all hearsay. The people is what she said that the people said. It wasn't, people weren't there to say it. $600 for broken trailer doors with no before and after photos or witnesses to testify. $180, $5 for furnace repair. Glendora paid, Natalia would not pay, and Glendora deducted from the rent, and $26 for the same sink repair, and $130 for municipal water, which Glendora was never told she had to pay. There was no unpaid rent, and all there was unpaid Natalia bills. $435 rent for April, May, June, $305 when Natalia herself came up with a 3-day eviction on March the 18th, and when there was no lease agreement, since Natalia never signed a lease with Glendora, nor never signed a lease, or never served a lease, signed or unsigned. So there was no contract, and Glendora left because of Natalia's initiative on a 3-day eviction. $150 circa for massive cleanup. After Glendora left, the cleanup made massive by Natalia, Lydia, mother, father. Carlos preferred zero maintenance for years. Inter alia, these fake damages, quote unquote, totaled around circa $2,000. Now this is the way a realtor should act. This is the way a member of the National Association of Realtors should act. Do you get the gravamen? She and her accomplice should be expelled from the association. Dixon reserved the first smart thing that he had done, and then amidst a cascade of RICO, that's Racketeer Influence Crime Organization, this is what is going on here. They are an enterprise. And vehicle and traffic hoaxes. Dixon squeezed in the main case of April the 13th, Glendora versus Nasty Natalia et al. Now, can you believe this? Dixon let the defendant speak first. How dysfunctional can a judge get? Kleinbaum said the case was not valid because of such names as Nasty Natalia and Brat's sister Lydia. He never heard of Glendora versus Bruiser Ken, litigated in the United States District Court, Brooklyn, for 2 years as Glendora versus Bruiser Ken. A plaintiff can sue by any name the plaintiff chooses, and nothing but an order of due process can change a lawsuit caption. So Dixon admitted, well, she does have preferred country properties here, and then Kleinbaum objected that all was listed was personal damages. Well, if the plaintiff had been robbed of speaking first as plaintiff, are supposed to, Kleinbaum would have had in his hand Glendora's 20-page ad dominum of well over $3,000 she was suing for. $3,000 is the jurisdiction monetary limit of the village courts in the state of New York, and we are up to page 40, and that entitles us to a break. So we are about halfway through. Finally, Glendora made it clear. It was past time that she was to speak. She handed a copy of her personal damages as specified in her ad dominum to Dixon, to Kleinbaum, and to Natalia. Then she began reading them aloud, and Dixon constantly interrupted. Glendora reserved and Glendora persevered, and Dixon pushed the odd diamond away from himself toward Glendora, saying, I'm not going to accept this, and this was rank violation of due process. You heard that videotape, didn't you? Well, it's an audio tape on the videotape. You heard it, didn't you? Unbelievable that anybody who calls himself a judge could do that. Glendora countered also that Kleinbaum's anemic objection to personal damages with the complaint was made out under the auspices of the clerk. Dixon hit the ceiling. He said, whoa, 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 whoa. The clerk is his wife. And Dixon said, whoa, 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 6 times, I believe. Kleinbaum said the clerk was not supposed to give legal advice, and Glendora said this is not legal advice, it's procedural information. If there's anything a clerk has to do, it's that. They have to give the procedure, and they have to know it. The clerk lied, and Glendora had personal knowledge of that, and Dixon says, there's a motion before the bench to dismiss this case, and I'm asking you what you have to say. And when Glendora tried to say, Dixon constantly interrupted, and then out of nowhere, Dixon said, the case is dismissed. And that was in less than 10 minutes. That's on appeal, of course, now. Glendora was incredulous. You're dismissing my case? She asked in awe, and then she asked the clerk, Dixon's wife, the procedure, how to appeal. Kleinbaum provided a major part of the information, and the clerk was not that ready with the answers. Glendora has an audio tape of all of this. It is a shock to American jurisprudence how Dixon's, Kleinbaum, Natalia colluded and conducted themselves in court. Natalia lied at least 6 times under oath, and how does this fit into the code and standards of practice of the National Association of Realtors? Glendora said thank you for the appeals information, gathered her papers, and left the court. Around 8:25 p.m. on the night of April the 13th, 2004, Dixon stayed there in odious collusion with the other side. He should have known enough to clear the courtroom and to lock it. And the next morning, Glendora did 2 things. She wrote her a notice of appeal and bought a $5 money order and served it on the Dixons, National, Natalia, and Kleinbaum. And then she sat down and started writing her complaint, suing George C. Dixon for violation of her civil rights under Title 47, under Title 42, United States Code 1983, Civil Rights, and Section 1985, collusion, conspiracy. She sued him in the United States District Court, Chicago. The complaint against him was 200 pages. His wife, Natalia, et al., and Kleinbaum were sued as accessories before the fact and after the fact. The village of Chatham was sued, and the police department. And they hired a lawyer. The village of Chatham hired a lawyer for all of these Chatham people. A lawyer in Indianapolis for a court that was filed in Chicago. It was a Herculean call, but Glendora could not rest if she did not stand up for what is American. Now, Nation Dixon never put this order in writing, not to this day, August the 12th, 2004, not to this day, September 1st, 2004. Yet he submitted a return on the appeal to the county appeals court. Is this unbelievable? Glendora made this grounds for her immediate award of $3,000 damages against Natalia et al. The legal counsel that the National Association of Realtors mandates a realtor to get, in this case James Kleinbaum, wrote an appellant's brief. No, he didn't. He wrote an appellee's brief. Glendora countered with her plaintiff's appellant reply brief. On August the 23rd, On Monday, Glendora served her appellant's brief on Preferred versus Glendora. It took 20 hours and $78 to print and post it. It was 400 pages of all of the wrongs done by Natalia, a realtor, and accomplices. On August the 24th, she videotaped the briefs for Chatham TV, for Ghent, Kopek, and the 5 other municipalities, Charter TV at 9 p.m. Fridays, Channel 7. She also videotaped the audio tape that she made in the Dixon court, exhibiting the outrageous collusion of Natalia et al. With George C. Dixon, Justice, and his wife Joanne Dixon, clerk in the Chatham Village Court. So Natalia followed Article 13 in getting legal counsel, but violated the Code of Ethics and the Standards of Practice of the National Association of Realtors by colluding with a bad one. And they got caught. Article 14, in her day is coming. If charged with unethical practice, or asked to present evidence or to cooperate in any other way in any professional standards proceeding or investigation, realtors shall place all pertinent facts before the board. Wonder what she'll do when this comes out. And that they shall not cover up. But Glendora has already mentioned the cover up. And Glendora has done page 5 out of 8 now of the Code of Ethics, Standards of Practice of the National Association of Realtors. And this point is not clear, that realtors, Article 15, shall not knowingly or recklessly make false or misleading statements. Okay, well, Natalia did this promiscuously in court about the Glendora rental, and this has all been delineated super, and she lied under oath almost a dozen times. And we are up to page 50, and all of this is a DNA, which means it does not apply. And we're over on to page 51. And we're up to page 6 of the Code of Ethics and Standards of Practice of the National Association of Realtors. Glendora feels that Article 16, Standard of Practice 1610, was violated because Natalia, Lydia, and Preferred deliberately misrepresented that they did not own the property, the rental. They said they managed it and that it was owned by somebody in Florida. They and Mother Marie, father, brother Carlos owned it. Analog for landlord-tenant, Natalia et al. On the first contact should have made it clear that she wanted the tenant to pay the heat, that she wanted the tenant to pay the hot water, that she wanted the tenant to pay the water bill. These never came up until after we lived there over a month, maybe 2 or 3. And this was deliberate duplicity. Now, how can a realtor whose business is real property violate so heinously the New York State Real Property Law and the New York State Real Property Actions and Proceedings Law? Now you may say, why do they have 2 laws? Well, the Real Property Law Well, between a tenant and a landlord, the actions become so violent that the New York State real property law really didn't specify how things should be done. So the New York legislature had to write the New York State real property actions and proceedings laws, precisely how you take an action against a tenant, precisely how you proceed against a tenant, and it has to be strictly construed. And that's why there are these two laws. Standard of practice 1612, realtors acting as representatives of seller landlords or as subagents shall disclose that relationship to buyers and tenants. She did not, again, say that she owned the property. She said she managed it. We are up to page 57 and page 7 of the Code and Standards. There's nothing here that applies. We go on to page 54. Glendora feels that Natalia violated Article 16 because she placed a sign on Glendora's property, that is, the property of which Glendora had possession, saying that there would be an inspection on Wednesday, March the 24th, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And Glendora and Natalia did not get Glendora's consent to do that. She posted that sign on my window. Right the very day when I was in the middle of writing the 100 complaint against her. Glendora versus Nasty Natalia et al. Natalia should have arbitrated the dispute between her and Glendora, but in a rage, she had to assuage her Napoleonic complex by hiring a phony cop to serve a 3-day eviction notice. Page 8. Of the Code of Ethics, the last page. Standard of Practice 17.1. Natalia, Lydia, family, and preferred are smothered in odious litigation which may destroy them soon. Refusal to arbitrate is not a good choice, but Glendora will continue the call. What has happened in Chatham is rank dis-Americanism. The dispute is all over TV on a chat with Glendora, about 20 hours of it, and Glendora is on 45 TV stations, which would, each station has about 10 municipalities, just the way Charter has about 10 for Channel 7, and so that's 450 municipalities. And all over the world on the internet, there are 49 half-hour TV shows on www.achatwithglendora.com. And this paper doesn't say this, but yesterday, 24 more half-hour programs were set to be put on the internet. So what is 49 and 24 rounded off? That's about 75 half-hour programs, many of them this. We are doing very, very well. We are at the end of the Code of Ethics and Standards of Practice of the National Association of Realtors, which has been amended this many times, these many years, and Glendora says get it right the first time. It must be perfect by now. Now, conclusion, I believe. almost. In filing charges of an alleged violation of the Code of Ethics, the charge must read as an alleged violation of a specific article. Glendora says that's a good idea. And the standards of practice serve to clarify the ethical obligations imposed by the various articles, and Glendora was not served a copy of the interpretations of the Code of Ethics. Modifications to existing standards of practice are approved from time to time. And complainants such as Glendora are cautioned to ensure that the most recent publications are utilized, and Glendora says this is not her burden, but it is reasonable to assume that Madam Roberta Lieberman Nicholson, RCE, sent Glendora the most recent publications. And Glendora says thank you. And their copyright is here. You might like to see that. We're getting pretty close to the end here, folks. The mind cannot absorb more than the seat can endure. And to this Glendora says, Amen, solemn ratification thereof. And she includes a devotion and a Bible passage that she hopes will be helpful to all concerned, including moi and you and boo, you. And here at last what we've been waiting for is the conclusion. Wherefore, therefore, and ergo Glendora asseverates that Natalia, Sister Lydia, Mother Marie, Father, Brother Carl's, and preferred country properties must be expelled from the National Association of Realtors and take down the rectangular R logo and leave in disgrace. Under penalty of perjury, Glendora further avers that she has told the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help her God, Natalia, Lydia preferred have not, and this is a verified complaint. Dated August the 26th, 2004, Anno Domini, the County of Columbia, the State of New York, yours in truth, and in Amo Patriae, Glendora. Without prejudice, Uniform Commercial Code, Book 1, Section 207. And here is the service list that I've already read you. And guess what this costs? Guess what this costs? 24 hours. And what? Is that 100 and what? $101.92 is Opus 1,195. We enclose this first page of the thing, and this is my first letter to them. On that alone, they should have started the investigation, but they made me do all this work and go through. This is to McDermott, the Executive Vice President of the National Association of Realtors, and they made me go through all these hoops, spend all this money, all this time, and all this life. That was the first one I sent, and I read that to you way back, and it was complete enough. There was enough damage there to expel these people from the association. So they should have done it then and there. Look at that, how thorough it is. Here's page 7 of it. So I included that again. Here's page 8, and there's the date on it and how long it took. It was the day before Frankie's birthday. There's some more letters from them. Oh, that's a cost of it. Here's some more letters from them. Here's the R. And this is the final page, thank heaven. Natalia has not refunded Glendora's security deposit of $435. And I had made the demand for it orally, and I made the demand for it in writing. And how long is that? She was given that on June the 15th, circa, in the year 2004. And this is September in the year 2000. Excuse me, correction. She was given that mid-June in the year 2003, and this is 1 year, and July, August, 2 months later, and she has not given back the money that Glendora and Franklin entrusted her with. Now listen, you have to pray for all of these people. Okay? Pray for them. Pray for them. Moving on to somebody else who abuses the public, that would be Charles Dolan and Cablevision Systems Corporation. Here's an article in the Long Island Press, that public access mess. Cablevision rule change wreaks havoc. Well, let me turn off the Chatham edition and just go on to the other editions.